Welcome everyone to Coach Unboxed. This is a project by Unboxed Sports, an agency elevating professional tour tennis coaches on and off the court. I'm Yannick Yoshizawa, and today I'm joined by Kristof Vliegen, a former ATP Top 30 Davis Cup player for Team Belgian for 8 years and one of the top juniors in the world, having won the Wimbledon's boys doubles. Now a coach for more than a decade, Kristof took his first play from unranked to a career high of number 21 in the world and has recently returned to his Belgian roots to start a new chapter. Welcome, Kristof. Thank you so much for taking this call on this, let's call, off time at home. I'm assuming that you're still at home. You haven't left yet.
No, we didn't leave yet. We will leave on the 25th. So we will leave to Hong Kong. But I think we're all ready to leave and to go on tournaments. The player and me are excited to go back on the tour. So I've been home for a few weeks. Feels like time to leave again.
Nice. Well, that just shows how crazy a schedule of tennis can be. Living on Christmas Day and probably only coming back home end of January, right?
Hopefully it would be the 28th of January or 29th. That means that we have at least one trophy, the winner or the runner-up. But let's make it until the end of January would be great.
Well, for those who will probably be already following you in the news, Kristof just joined Zizou Bergs team, so congrats on that. Now, before we get to that part of your life, we'll go back to beginning in Belgium. So tell us, how did Kristof get into the sport of tennis? Was it a coincidence? Was it through your parents? Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, I think it's more like a coincidence. When I was at school, I was like 5, 6 years old. There was a tennis racket in the classroom, and I took it in my hand and started to play against the wall. That's actually basically how I started it. But I was really, really into tennis, and the teacher at that time, she took me once or twice on Wednesday afternoon, because on Wednesday there was no school, to play with her a few times, and I was enjoying it so much. And from that moment on, tennis was the most important thing in my life, and it is still actually one of the most important things in my life. So it's more than a coincidence.
There was no influence from your parents, siblings at that point. There were just like tennis rackets laying around on the classroom.
Yeah, well, there was only one. I have to admit, there were not 10, so there was only one, and it was mine. So I took it, and nobody else took it. I cannot remember if I was all the time by myself, but that's at least what the story says, what people told me. So there was no influence from the parents. There was no putting pressure, because there was nobody playing tennis in the family. Now I only have my little son who just turned 6. He's playing a little bit, but my brother didn't play. Nobody in the family played. So I just loved the game by myself, and I tried to do my best from a young age.
Oh, that's awesome. I'm sure that you've given a lot of credit now to that teacher who taught you your first forehand.
Yeah, for sure. And also what is a little bit funny with it, like I always had contact with them because like she was married to another teacher, and I had him like in third grade. So a few years later, I had him as well. Now, the last couple of years, I didn't speak to them anymore. But when I was playing, I know they were following. My parents were always going to them to say hi or whatever, because I was traveling around the world, and I went to school in Antwerp when I was a little bit older than to the federation. But I always had a little bit contact with him, and when I see him, it's always nice to see him.
Yeah, that's awesome. What are their names here? We're gonna find them to make sure that they listen to this.
I will write it down, because it's impossible that you're gonna understand the word I'm gonna say. So I will not even pronounce the names, because it's not good, it's not worth it. But they know exactly
Yeah,
what I'm doing now, and I know they're following. I know
awesome.
they're like they're a little proud of what happened
Yeah.
with me. I know when I see them, they're always happy to see me, and I'm always happy to see them. And it was great, because the relationship that I had with them was first like a teacher, and I was a little boy, but it became also a little bit more friendship in the older days. And I know that my parents were always there talking with them, because they lived close to each other. Me, when I was like 10, 11, 12, I was leaving my parents to go to Antwerp to go to school there, to the federation. So I saw them less and less, but I know they always had good contact.
Oh, that's awesome. We'll definitely have to share this with them when it's out. Now, I think they did a great job getting you into tennis, and then you pick it up quite quickly. You get invited to go to the federation at a very young age. As you were mentioning, you were spending a lot of time outside of your home already as an 11-year-old. How did that feel for you as a kid? Did you feel like cool and training with the best? But also, how did your parents feel at that point? Were they proud of you, or was it a little concerning for them at such an age?
Well, I think for me, it was the best option. Like for me, it was like a dream to go to the federation to play with the best players in the country, to practice with them, going to school. So I was not even thinking what was going on at home for my parents. Now I'm a parent by myself. Now I can imagine how it felt for them when I was leaving the house on Monday morning. I was coming back on a Friday night. At that time, there was no iPhones or whatever. We still communicated sometimes by fax. Yeah, you guys will know it, I think, but not everybody will know what it is. So it was not a lot of communication. For me, of course, on the Monday mornings, they were tough to say goodbye to my parents. But 1 hour later, when I was playing tennis or when I was practicing, I forgot it. So for me, it was a great experience. And as a kid, you don't think about all the things that could happen to you or whatever. I was just living the dream. I could play tennis every day. I could do it 3, 4 hours a day. I was playing football with my friends. I was going to school. I was doing my homework for school, but I was not really focused on it. So for me, it was really great. I was only focused on tennis, and that was great. My mother and my father, of course, they were a little bit worried. It's normal. I think when you have a kid of 11 years old and for 5 days a week he's gone, and you only see him in the weekends. Well, I don't think you raise kids with that as a goal. But I'm actually doing the same now. My oldest son is turning 11 on the 24th of December. And now I can imagine what my parents felt. Now I'm leaving him because I'm going to Auckland or I'm going to Hong Kong, to Australia. I don't see them much. But for me, it feels pretty normal. And I can understand for a lot of people, it's not normal at all.
Yeah.
But for me, it's pretty normal to not see my kids so much, or my parents. I got used to it. But so I had a great experience. I became independent really fast, perhaps too fast. I didn't have like the time as a real child, 14, 15, 16 years old, having fun doing all the bad stuff. I didn't have it because I was at the federation. I was playing tennis, but that was my only thing I was thinking of, playing tennis.
But you talk about this and you had fun playing tennis. That's what drove you to play a lot. And talk a little bit about the fact that when you were growing up, there was a good crop of tennis players from Belgium, right? It wasn't just you, you had a lot of great, talented players coming up with you. You ended up being a great junior player. You are the top 12 player in the world, it's number 4 in doubles. Was it getting to your perspective of like how good you were at that age, or it was just fun growing up with so many great players? I'm sure your levels were close, so like it felt normal for you. So what was going on during teenage years?
Well, as a teenager, I was actually just having fun. I was dreaming about becoming a good tennis player or a world tennis player. I was dreaming about to being on the big courts, that's for sure, when I was watching it on TV. But I think when I was still 16, 17, 18 years old, I was a child in my head. Okay, when you're 16, you're a child. But even after juniors, in my head, I was always a little bit younger. I was not mature enough yet. So actually, I was having more fun on the court. I think because I had so much fun and being around good tennis players, it felt always like home. I never felt like I was not belonging in those tournaments. When you were playing, let's say, French Open or Wimbledon, that were the two slams that I played as a junior. It felt normal that I was there for my tennis level. Mental wise, it was different because, as I said, like I was not thinking so much how big the event was. I was like too childish. So that was also something, I'm sure, that it took me a while after the juniors to become a better tennis player.
Because when you were traveling as a junior, and to remind, was it Malise? He was around the
Yeah,
same age, or Rokus, right?
yeah, we had Malise, he was 2 years older. I had Kristof Vliegen, who was 3 years older. Olivier Rochus was 1 year older. And I had Steve Darcis, was 2 years younger. So we had a few guys, like let's say 5 really good junior players. At that
Yeah.
point, we had also clashes in Henan, number 1 and 2 in the world WTA. So there were also, I guess, number 1 juniors, but they left juniors pretty fast or early.
Hmm.
So we had a generation, like let's say between 2000 and 2015, perhaps. We had the generation with unbelievable good players. Guys, we had 5 top 50 guys at the same time. and we have number one and two in the world with the women. So I think the generation is great.
Was it coincidence that you had five players at the same time from women to men? Now you see Italy and they have a great generation from both sides, but usually you don't see both happening at the same time. So Belgium, such a small country, was it the federation? Was there like coaching? Was the development program? Or do you think it was just because you had a great talent and it was so fun that everyone just helped each other pushing that?
Well, I think the generation we had, for sure, we had a lot of talent, and we were like four or five guys always practicing together. So for sure, we were raising up our level, pushing each other. We were not conscious about it, but I think we made each other better because at some point, when some guy is 25 in the world, the other one is 31, 35, you want to become better than the other one. You want to have a better ranking as the other Belgian guy, and so I think we also made each other better. But we had a lot of talent. That of course the coaches were doing a good job, like that's for sure. But that was at that time also the ATP circuit. Like it was not as now, for sure not. Now the guys are really professional. If you look back, we were not really professional, but I'm not sure that all the other countries were professional. We cannot compare it.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I think what made me become a good tennis player is because at some point I was working and I was using my talent. When I was a younger player, junior player, I was only playing with my talent.
But then you turn 18, you turn 19, you cannot play juniors anymore, and you finish the junior rankings at a very high level. And also, you have to remember that you got those rankings without traveling too much outside of Europe, right? You didn't play the US Open, you didn't play the Australian Open. So, how was that transition for you? Because, you left home pretty quick, you were independent very early. While now to become a professional tennis player, you need to start getting out of your culture. You have to start traveling around the world. So, how was that transition for you as being one of the best juniors in the world to now having to pay for your own expenses, travel, not every time winning a lot of tournaments?
Well, first of all, the transition took a while, like because we, as a junior player, was used to win a lot of matches and to lose not so much. I was losing every week. So when I was starting futures, well, we're gonna start when I was playing adult guys. So I was playing guy number 25 years old, 30 years old. I was not used to it. So it took me a while to find the rhythm to win matches. I was losing a lot of matches in future. I was not even qualifying for futures at some point. So of course at that time I needed to have a team around me that believed in me, that kept pushing, because at some point as a young player, if you're not used to lose, you need to learn how to lose, and you start working from that. I was always used to work from winning matches. Now I need to start working from losing matches, which is mentally 100 times tougher, of course.
Because I think a lot of juniors go through this transition and a lot of people give up because it's not easy when you start. If you had a very successful juniors career, when you start losing, it's not easy. And did you feel ever like, well, maybe I'm not good enough? Maybe I should just go back home and do something different? Did you ever think that? And if so, or if not, were there something that kept you going?
Well, of course, there were some moments in my career that I was thinking like I'm not good enough or how I'm gonna do it. You started to lose the belief in yourself. That's, I think everybody has it. Doesn't matter which level you have. So when I was starting playing the futures and I was getting into challenge, I was losing more matches than I was winning. So that was the toughest thing. But I think at some point I was thinking perhaps I'm not good enough. But then my character also said to me, okay, we need to work harder. Like we need to try other things. We need to work harder. And I was actually pretty lucky. Once I was starting to win some matches in futures, I was also getting my ranking up really fast. And when I started playing challenges, at some point it went easier. Like I was winning matches again every week. I was qualifying every week. I was winning some rounds. So I was always making between 10 and 20 points. And if you make 10, 20 points every week, you do it 20 times a year, you get between 200 and 400 points. So you're ranked between 150 and 200 at that time. So actually, after 1 year and a half, I finished the year 160 or something. And in the beginning of the year, it felt like I have no idea what I'm doing or what's gonna be. So it didn't take a long time, even if that point, the 6 months that It took me a while to win matches. 6 months is a lot
Yeah.
when you're into it, but 6 months in a career is nothing. If you make
Yeah.
a career 15 years or 12 years, 6 months is nothing. But when you're into it, you don't feel it that way, of course. You cannot do it 3 years
It's
the
much
way I
longer.
did my first 6 months, that's for sure not.
Yeah. Do you think that shift in your mindset, was it because you were like, okay, I know I need to work harder, and the harder that you worked physically, but also technically, consequently, you start hitting better balls, you start being more physical during the matches, and then just translated into your confidence, and that sort of took you to the next level. That
Well, yes,
momentum is a big thing in tennis, right?
yeah, of course. But I also think the expectations that I had for myself when I was a junior player and I was not working hard, it's strange to say, but you're not expecting to win tournaments. When you start to work hard in futures, when you get to the ATP circuit, you expect to win. The expectation that I had for myself, now I'm working hard, so I'm going to win more, which is actually not true at all. You can work as hard as you want. If the opponent is better than you, well, he's still better. So you need to make yourself better. So that was also a point difficult to deal sometimes because I was expecting to win many more matches because I was working harder. But it doesn't work that way.
And you got to the top 30. You lost a couple finals there, but sometimes people only see the success when you're actually winning titles, right? But consistency, it's actually even more important of passing qualies or making quarterfinals than winning one title and that's it, right?
Yeah, it's actually easy to explain for myself. I was not good enough to win titles. Like let's say once a year, twice a year. But if you can, there's one example that I always used in the past. Like Dimitrov won the Masters in 2018 until January 2024. He didn't win one title. It was 6 years. He didn't win a title. So that shows how tough it is. And he has been between, let's say, ranked 8 and 15 all the time. He didn't leave. He was
That's
not
crazy.
injured. So how tough is it to win titles? Extremely tough. And I think for myself, I can speak for myself now, I don't think I was good enough. I had some opportunities to win perhaps, or to win more matches, or to win some semifinals to go back into finals. But for some reason, I didn't win them. I think I was getting a little bit too nervous. I got a little bit tight sometimes, which is always something going. So that's the way it goes, and I have to accept it, and now I can accept it. But it's extremely tough to win tournaments.
Yeah, and to win matches too.
Yeah.
And during your professional career, you reach a very high ranking of 30 in the world. And also, you play a lot of times for Belgium as part of the Davis Cup. And you mentioned how you had familiar faces around you because you had a lot of players around the same age. How was it playing for your country? Was that something that you were even more proud to represent your country with childhood friends than playing on the tour? Did it feel different?
Well, yes, it feels different for sure because like during the year, it's an individual sport. So whenever you get into a team sport, it's always nice to have a goal as a team because it's changing completely the goal that you have. You have a goal by yourself every week in, every week out for the end of the year. But once you play for your country, you have a goal as a team, which I loved it a lot. And also, as we mentioned before, we had like 4 or 5 guys top 50 in the world. So at that point, we were also like a bunch of friends getting together, and we had the same goal. For us was actually, for me personally, was great because we had the same age, all more or less. It's not that I was 20 years old and number one of Belgium was number 30 was 32 years old.
Yeah. And now to get a little bit later in your career, you're getting closer to your 30s and you start getting a little injury. When did it get to the time that you actually started thinking of, well, I may have to retire because I cannot compete anymore at this level? How was that part of your life of getting injury, trying to get back, not getting back, and actually making that decision of retiring?
Well, when you get injured, the only thing you think about that is like, okay, I'm injured now. It's gonna take 3 months, 6 months, or sometimes injuries take 10 days, and you're back on the court. So for sure, when the shoulder was getting bad and the elbow was not great, you meet a team of doctors and they tell you, okay, take off 6 months. We're gonna do all the rehab as you want. And 6 months become 9 months, so you become impatient. So of course, when you start practicing again, I was actually thinking for myself, okay, this is gonna be good. I'm gonna be fine again. So I was practicing for a few months, going back on the tour, had protected ranking, was 50, so it was great. I could play all the big ones. But pretty fast, I felt like, okay, my level is far away to beat those guys. So first, when I was practicing, I was thinking, okay, I'm ready. But once I was on the tour, it felt like I'm not ready at all. It's strange to say, but at some point, when I was playing matches, I didn't even was counting, was 15 love, 15 all, 30, 15. Like I was focused on so many other things and just playing the point because I lost a little bit the focus of winning matches, how
Yeah.
to win matches. But also when I was starting back a few weeks and I felt the shoulder again, at some point I also lied to myself because I didn't want to see the truth.
Yeah.
I wasn't honest with myself. Like I felt that the shoulder was not great. Um, but I kept on going because I wanted to come back. I needed to come back. I wanted to be on the tennis court. So at some point, I took off again for like 3, 4, 5 months. I was working hard to get back. I was feeling good, and then at some point, I went to my doctors before tournament starts again, just do a checkup of everything was going well, the whole body, full body. We controlled everything. We focused on the whole body, the shoulder, whatever. Whenever I came out of that, doctors told me like, Chris, this is not working. Like they actually put me on hold. I need to tell you now that you need to take off. Like it's done. You cannot go back on the court because their muscles they can break or whatever. But the goal of playing tennis is not that you're gonna be in a wheelchair in
So
10
they
years.
made that
So
decision for you in a
yeah,
way.
so they made a decision for me, and I have to admit I'm happy that they did it because I would not have done it, even if I felt that was the right thing. When they told me in the beginning, it felt like a lot of weight fell off my shoulders, which is actually pretty crazy because the only thing I wanted to do was playing tennis, and when they told me it's done, it felt like a relief. And
Yeah.
so it also means that at that point I was lying to myself because I wanted to do it so badly.
Yeah, before we transition into your next chapter of your life, do you believe that at that point you wanted to play tennis, or did you feel that you had to play tennis? Because you
No,
played tennis your whole life and it was your source of income, did you feel like, how am I going to make a living? Or was that not the thought process?
No, I was not. I was never thinking about the financial way. I was only thinking about the yellow balls, and I wanted to play. And I wanted to play tennis. It has never been a motivation for me to play tennis for the money. Of course, I know that the money was coming as well. That's for sure. You cannot hide it. But I did not start playing tennis for the money. I started playing tennis because I love the game. And I still love the game today. And I'm making less money as before. And I didn't make money with tennis for a while. So money has never been a motivation. It has always been the game who motivated me to get back on the court.
That's awesome. And so, okay, so you retired. The doctor said, no more tennis, Kristof. So, what now? What did you do right away?
Well, I think I disappeared for a few months, if I remember well. I think the first couple weeks, I still went back to the practice courts, went to the gym. I kept on doing the things that I was supposed to do when I was a professional tennis player. I still had a coffee at 8:30 in the tennis club. I still had gym at 9, just warming up, hitting some balls. But I think it took me a while to realize, like, okay, it's done. So let's say after a few months, I was a little bit out. I think I was a little bit depressed as well because I had no idea what to do in my life. I never thought about it when I was playing because the only goal I had was playing tennis until the end of, let's say, at that point, we all retired around 33, 20, 32 years old. Now the guy's playing a little bit longer. So my goal was to play still 4 or 5 years. So nothing came up on me in my head to say, okay, what we're going to do after my career. I never thought about it.
Because you
So
were
that
29 at that point, right?
yeah, I was 29 when I had to quit, when I quit. So I did not think about anything after the career. Then I opened the restaurant and a nightclub.
Hang
So
on. So, you open a restaurant in a nightclub.
mhm.
How did
Well,
you
yeah.
get there?
Well, how did I get there? A friend of mine, He had a restaurant before. He invited me to go have lunch because everybody actually around me, they were scared about my future, but they were like, okay, now it's time that he starts to do something or to realize there's something else than tennis in life. So when I had lunch with my friend, he told me, Chris, what do you think you want to do? And I said, I have no idea. I have no idea what I'm going to do. And he told me, why we don't open a restaurant? We can take over this one where we're actually having had lunch. And I said, okay, why should I do it? And actually, the guy told me in 24 hours, I had the keys, or I decided to take it. My friend was going to be managing it because I had no idea how to do it.
But did your friend had an experience in restaurants
Yes,
or that?
yes,
Okay.
he had experience by running the restaurants. So I think I signed the papers the 25th of August 2012, and the 1st of September 2012, I opened my restaurant and the nightclub. I did it for
And
four
at
years and I
that
loved it.
point, when you were signing that, you had never managed, never run a restaurant nor a nightclub, and you were very compelled, I'm assuming, by your friend, but you were also taking part of the operation. So you were actually going to help run it.
Well, yeah, I was there. I was working in my own nightclub. When the restaurant was there, people had complaints about the food, drinks, whatever. They called me. They were calling me all the time. So I was managing actually a pretty big team. Like we had a cook, we had a chef, we had three, four girls working the restaurant. In a nightclub, I was running the
Bouncers.
security. I was taking care of like, let's say 10, 15 people. So I had meetings with them to see how we can make the restaurant better, how we can do better, make the people feel more comfortable. How was the food? That they like the food, that don't like it. What do we put on the menu? Which we don't put on the menu anymore because we don't sell it. So it was a lot of things to do. But
And at
actually, I
that
enjoyed
point,
it.
you had nothing to do with tennis. You left completely the tennis.
I left completely. I was not coaching at all. Let's say the first year, probably 2 years, I did not have anything with tennis. But then slowly again, I came into the tennis world because some people called me if I could help during the week to give some lessons, and I rolled back into it. I was still playing some club matches as well.
So when you started getting back into tennis, teaching, playing club matches, you still had your restaurant and nightclub. So you started doing both at
Yes.
that time. But I'm assuming like running a restaurant and a nightclub, you were basically up all night, going to bed, what, 4 or 5 a.m. Then you were getting to the tennis court. So you had almost like no sleep.
Well, when you say 4 or 5 a.m., you're pretty nice with me. It was like more 6, 7 sometimes. So yeah, I was sleeping during the weekend. The nightclub was open on Thursday, Friday, and Saturday night. But the restaurant was open from Tuesday to Saturday night. But Tuesday, Wednesdays, I never went to the restaurant because I was always giving some lessons, so I couldn't go. But Thursday, Friday, Saturday, yeah, I was there every night at, let's say, 7 p.m. until, let's say, 5, 6 average in the morning. And most of the time around 10 in the morning, I was back on the court. So yeah, the weekends I was not sleeping a lot. Whenever I could take a nap, I was taking a nap. So I needed to find a combination because when I was doing the nightclub, the restaurant, I could not leave. And when some people asked me to give some tennis lessons, in the beginning I was doing it to help them out. It became also a goal to become, first of all, a tennis coach, and it will also become a goal because I met talent Griekspoor at that time. I thought he was a great guy to work with, and so my goal changed as well. So I was like 50% on the nightclub, 50% on him, and I wanted to be 100% with him. So at some points, I sold everything.
Wow. So talk about Griekspoor now. How did you get to that point of meeting him and start coaching? Because when you first met each other, he was not playing professionally. He was still a junior. So how did you find him, or how did he find you?
Well, it's actually a coincidence. I was playing club matches in Holland. I was playing with his older brothers, Scott and Kevin. They're twins. I was with them in the team. Talon was there as well. He was not on our team, but he was watching his brothers all the time. I met him. I saw him playing. After a few times that I played, I met the parents as well. I spoke a little bit with the parents. The parents asked me after the matches. There were 10 futures at that time in a row in Belgium during summertime. And they asked me, Chris, can you help the brothers out for a few weeks? And I said, well, I can do that, but there's only one condition that I have. I want to have Talon with me like this. He can practice. He's a still a junior. I know he's not going to play well in the futures. Like we will sign him up every week to play qualies, but he's not even sure to be in. But at least I can tell him what to do. We can work together for 2 hours a day. We can watch the matches of his brothers, and so he came as
So
well.
you basically saw that talent in him, meaning just like any job, if someone pays you to do a job with certain players, you in theory would have to focus on them, get them better. But so what did you see in talent?
Like I saw a guy who really wanted to become a good tennis player. When we were watching actually Scott playing matches, Talon was sitting next to me. We were talking about tennis all the time. I was asking him like, what do you think he should do now? What do you think the opponent should do? What is the tactics? How should you do it? If you were there, like what would you do in the court? And I always had the feeling like everything he said was true, was the right thing. So that's pretty important. Well, it's a good start. If the player sees what happens on the court from the outside, it's important. Now, the most difficult thing was to do it on the court when he's playing by himself. But it showed me like he was pretty intelligent on the court. Even if you talk with him at that point, it was off court. There was no pressure. There was no nerves. There was nothing involved. But he was intelligent from the outside, and he is still at onside as well. From that point, I had also the time the parents gave me, and I'm really grateful for that. That they never put a pressure on me about rankings or whatever. I told them from the beginning, okay, it's gonna take a while. It's not going to be in 2 years. He's not going to be top 50 in the world in 2 years. It's going to take 4, 5, 6 years, and hopefully four, not six. But you never know how it goes. So I explained the plan that I had with him, I was gonna work. If they were okay with it, Talon was okay with it, and they gave me the chance to do it. We succeed pretty well from 17 years old, and now he's like 28 years old and was 35 or 40 in the world with his best ranking 21. And he won two tournaments in 2023, and I think he beat it a lot of good guys. So I'm really proud of the
Yeah.
way that we did it.
No, it's incredible what both of you have accomplished together. And you had a very successful tennis career. So my assumption is that you had that knowledge of a player. How did you feel on court? You could relate to him. And you didn't have a lot of experience as a coach, especially on tour, but you had an experience as a leader in the restaurant and a nightclub because you had to manage a lot of people. So, did you feel that experience with you outside of tennis, managing different people, how to communicate? Did you feel that that made you a better coach as well?
No, for sure. For 100%. I think managing a team in the restaurant and the night would help me how to manage a team of people around talent with a physical coach, a mental coach, managing talent, managing myself as a team leader at that time. For sure, it helped. It helped me a lot. I didn't have the experience as a coach, for sure not. The experience that I had was like as a player in my head. When I started with talent, I was still a player in my head. I was not coach yet. So when they were playing futures, I was making the plans, the tactics, and I had a player who could always like do the things I asked. And when you play futures and you have a decent tennis player and he can do tactical things that I was asking for, he went pretty fast out of the futures. Like he was winning pretty fast. So I think also the confidence from himself was growing pretty fast. I think that was his a little bit a problem for him when he was a younger player. He was not a great junior player. He didn't win a lot of matches. He was always looking up to his brothers for years because they were much older and they were better than him for a long time. So I think it took him a while to get confidence in himself. He was proving himself at some point that he could become a very good tennis player.
I don't know out of top of my head any coach player relationship that went from 0 to his highest ranking of 21 in the world. That is quite incredible, especially when you're working player to player. It's not part of an academy and whatnot. So you actually made that whole journey with him. And I'm assuming when he was playing futures as an 18-year-old, he was very different than when he started making to the ATP, playing Grand Slams, being seated at Grand Slams, winning ATP titles, and you had to evolve yourself as well. How did you manage to keep bringing new growth elements to tennis? Because when you look at the current tennis format, you see a lot of turnover, right? The majority of players and coaches, they stay together maybe 3, 4 years, but the majority is usually like 1, 2 years max. It's a very tough environment because you also are spending 24/7 with that player.
Well, you need to know, like with Talon and I, when we started to work together, he was living in my house and I was living in his house because we were not living in the same country. So 1 week out of two, I was staying 3 nights in his house, and 1 week out of two, he was staying 3 nights in my house when we were practicing. So for sure, we did like 24/7. I think we built a relationship, also friends. It was not like father son, but sometimes it felt like that. That was also the reason now the breakup we had now. One of the reasons is that the relationship we had was too close. But I tried, like I put it goals in the beginning of his career to make him top 100, and I set top 50. I said like we can try to make a title, we'll see, to get you seeded. So the main goal has always been top 20, which we didn't make. Just still, it's 21. It's not 20, but I know we came from really far as a junior player. So for me, it was not difficult to always put new goals because I think he could, and he still can be a better player than he has been the last 2, 3 years. I think with the age he's going to have in a few years, the experience he's going to have on the tour, I think he's going to be a very, very good player. And he proved already, and he has nothing to prove to anybody. He doesn't need to prove to himself. He showed himself how good he can be. He will be a guy on court that not a lot of players want to play. And for me, actually, it was not that difficult to keep him motivated, keep on motivating by myself, because when it's going all good, it's easy to keep on going. The moment is like when you work with a guy who is, for instance, 20 in the world now, and he drops to 85 in 1 year, then I think you have a lot of work to do, and you need to reinvent the player or yourself, and then you need to stay together as a team as well. And that was something with Talon was not difficult to keep as a team.
Yeah, it's pretty impressive this story because when you have drops in the ranking on your level, you have to reinvent yourself, but to keep the growth for 10 years in a row, you don't see that on a stock exchange. You don't see that on the Tesla for 10 years in a row. So that's quite impressive. And I think it's also very mature of both of you to find also the right time. Both of you had to take the next step on your careers, right? You've developed incredibly as a coach. You've proved yourself on how great of a coach you could be. He proved himself how great of a player he could be with this partnership. And I think it tells a little bit of the tribute that you put out there, but also Talent, on his own post said, you made me believe all of this was possible. And as you mentioned, I believe you guys still have a great relationship, and you still wish him all the best, and vice versa. Now at the same time, when it's coming to an end of such a amazing partnership, I'm also thinking that you had your doubts. 10 years with one player, a couple breaks, and now moving into your next chapter. You talked a little bit about how he needed maybe someone else to also help him continue to develop. But what about for you? Were you thinking also for yourself, like, well, what is my next step? How can I continue to be a better coach? So, how was this process of going from one to the other?
Well, from one to the other was not that easy because I made the call by myself to quit with Talents. I think we both came to a point that we were not working great with each other anymore. I don't think it was a good idea to keep on working together. We were not on the same page all the time. The communication was a little bit difficult. So I think it was important for me to be happy again, because at the end I was not really happy with the way everything was going. So at that point when I quit with Talent, I was hoping that some guys would call me, or one guy would call me, that I could start back again on the tour, but I never had an idea when that was going to be. So for sure now, after a few days or 10 days, whatever, Zizou Bergs called me, and I had a phone call with him. We talked a little bit, and I was watching some matches from him from this year to see where I could help him or not, because I needed also for myself. If somebody calls me and I don't feel like it's gonna be the right player for me, or I don't think I would have done it. Now, Zizou is a guy that I like the character, I like the energy he has, I like the way he plays his game style. So there were some positive points that convinced me to go back on the tour, because in the beginning I didn't know if I was going to be back on the tour and if somebody would call me. So for me to change that, it was not easy, I have to admit, because when I started with Zizou, what is it, 4 or 5 weeks ago? Now, in the beginning, when you're, let's say, 10 years with one player, it's strange to stand on the court with a guy that you never saw, basically, or you just saw him a few times on the tour, but I did not really see him a lot. The first couple of days were a little bit strange, but on the other hand, it was really nice because like there are new goals to try to get him better ranked, better that he becomes a better player, to try to get his ranking up. I think he's on a good way, and hopefully I can keep him winning some matches.
Yeah, and I'm sure it feels nice as well being able to speak the same language on court. But did you feel that proud moment having a countryman, right, from Belgium calling you, taking to the next level as well? That part of like Belgium with Belgium, that does that give you also an extra motivation?
Well, it doesn't give me an extra motivation, but for sure it's nice that one of the most talented players of Belgium now, he calls me. So we have a few young guys coming up as well, but I think Zizou belongs to one of the future guys of Belgium. I think he's going to do great. If it's with me or without me, it doesn't really matter. I think he's going to have a great career. And for sure, when a Belgian guy call you like he did, and we live basically 40 minutes from each other, we speak the same language. Even with talent, we also spoke the same language. I was speaking Flemish, he was speaking Dutch. It's the same language, just a little bit different accent. So that was not an issue to talk with him as well. So that was actually good.
Nice.
But for sure, with Zizou, it's different. Like a Belgian guy, I think when you live in the same country, we can practice every day. There are no days off. But when we're in Belgium, when we're like practice weeks, we both sleep in our houses. So when I was working with talent, I was sleeping in December most of the time. The
Yeah.
preseason, I was sleeping in Amsterdam a few times a week. So I was not really home. So but on the other hand, I think the pressure that they try to put on Zizou and me from the outside, the press or the tennis people, is bigger, because with talent they gave me the time to develop his game, and we'll see how far he gets it. This one is already Zizou is already 70 in the world, and his goal is to be close to 20, and he wants to beat it tomorrow morning. So it's going to be tough to beat tomorrow morning, but I believe that he has the potential to become a very good tennis player, and I'll do my best every single day to get him to reach his goal.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. And so, heading now to the end, throughout your career, you've seen as a 17-year-old talent now to, much mature Zizou Bergs to also as a tennis player. What do you think now after spending a decade in the coaching world? What has been the skills that you have improved, that you have developed, that makes you a better coach today?
Well, I think I became a better coach because I was watching so many matches. I tried, when I started my career as a coach, I was always watching tennis matches from my point of view. And with the years coming by, the weeks, months going by, I started to look from the point of view of my player. I could see something from the outside when Talon was playing, when I was talking with Talon after the match. He was telling me something else, or the way he was feeling it, because tennis, it's still a sport with emotion. So I can sit down, I can be relaxed, but Talon, he was tight, or he was stressed out, or he was not feeling great. I was always feeling great sitting next to the next to the court, because there was no physical work to do, was no mental work to do. I was just watching it. I'm trying to help him. So I think I started to realize that every person watches tennis in a different way, and the player, he feels it in another way as well. So I think I became close with Talon, close to his character, the way he was seeing the game. Like I had to adapt a few things by myself to make him a better player. It was not that he needed to adapt things to me. I'm the coach. I need to adapt a few things. My character, for example, I can change a little bit that my player feels more comfortable. With Zizou is the same thing. I start to learn how he works. There's some things like I don't think I would do it that way, but that's the thing, it works for him. So as long as it works for him, that's the most important thing.
Yeah. Well, before we get to the last part of our podcast here, tell us What happened with the restaurant and the nightclub?
What happened? Well, there was an Italian guy, beginning of 2016. He called me and he wanted to buy it. And first of all, I said like I don't want to sell it because it's my baby and it was going well. I was enjoying myself, but at some point also I had my first son who would turned 3. I was not seeing him a lot during the weekends. I was starting to travel with talent, so perhaps it was the right time to sell it. I convinced myself at that point I cannot combine both all the time. It's impossible. My son was 3, as I mentioned, so I could see him a little bit more if I was selling it. And actually, I was actually lucky. I don't know if it's luck from somewhere, but that that guy wanted to buy it, and we made a deal. And a few months later, I sold it, and I became a full-time coach.
So you actually has taken talent to his best ranking, and also you took the restaurant from 0 to their best ranking in 2016. And it's still operating today?
No, it's not
No?
operating anymore because with
Oh,
COVID came a few years ago, so they had some troubles with it. But I can tell you that they called me, uh, well, a few years ago, they called me to take over again, but I refused, and I think it was a good call to refuse it, just for my own health and
yeah.
my focus on my goals that I have on the as a tennis coach now.
Uh, all right, so let's get to the rapid fire here. We're going to start with our traditional question here that we always like to ask. And, you had so many experiences in so many different aspects of the industry of tennis, but also outside of tennis. What advice would you give to the younger Kristof Vliegen? And how old would the young Kristof when he would be listening to this advice?
I would say to a young Kristof Vliegen that he should start to work earlier in his career, not waiting until he was 18 years old. That was first thing. But when I was going to listen to it, well, I think it was going to be close to 16, 17 years old. And before that, I was enjoying playing tennis, having fun, enjoying life basically. I was never worrying about something. Everything was fine. I could play tennis. My day was great.
Yeah, well, I'm sure that also helped the younger Christoph to get where he wanted to be, having fun and enjoying life. All right, so the last 10 questions here. The first thing that comes to your mind, all right?
Yes,
One word to describe yourself as a person.
not easy. Well, actually, it's it's put. It could be the answer. Not easy.
There you go. One word to describe yourself as a coach.
Patient.
What are you most proud of in life?
My kids now.
What are you most proud of in tennis?
I think the year that I really had the breakthrough was in '06. How I managed everything.
What is your current dream?
I'm not really a big dreamer. I set some goals, that's for sure. But dreaming, it's not my thing. Now, the goal that I have is to bring Zizou Bergs as fast as I can, that as fast as he can, to top 50, and then we make some other steps to get it to him seeded in the slams. That would be great if we can put that as a goal. But I'm not really a big dreamer for myself.
What do you consider yourself an advocate for?
Well, I think it's important that we can make the world healthy. Health is one of the most important things, and sometimes when you look at what we have in Western Europe, as you look at the TV and you see some tragic things going on in the world, I think health is one of the most important things in life, and not everybody gets the same chances that I had.
Is there a athlete or a coach you look up to?
An athlete, well, you can look up to Michael Jordan, but Kobe Bryant or Tiger Woods, but I love Formula One. I don't say I look up to one person, but I like the emotions what sports bring people together.
Awesome. So, with that said about sports, is there a specific sport or team that you follow and cheer for?
Yes, there's one football team in Belgium called Anderlecht. That's my team. When they play at home and I'm in Belgium, I'm in the stadium with the
How are they
friends.
doing this year?
Well, they're not too bad actually this year. They had some tough years. Now they're third in the league, but they were playing Champions League for years. We were actually the richest club for a long time, and for some reason, some transfers didn't work out, and they lost some money. They didn't qualify for Champions League, so I think they're on the way back to the top. So
Okay.
hopefully this year they can be a champion again.
Is there a favorite book or podcast that you would recommend?
I would say I'm not really a big reader. I only was reading in the past when I was playing by myself, like biographies of known people. Podcast. Well, I think they all should start to listen to Unboxed. I think no, that's my favorite for sure now.
Especially your past teachers. Definitely, I'm gonna have them listening to this. All right, and last but not least, is there a quote, a philosophy that you live by every day?
There's for sure a quote that I had in the past that was working for myself. I don't use it every day, and I'm thinking now to say it in the right way to be sure. It says, hard work beats talent when talent doesn't work hard. And that's actually a lot of times that happened with myself, that I was starting to lose to people that didn't have as much as talent I had, but they were working so hard that got frustrated. So that's a quote which is pretty, it's true, it's nice, and it also comes with me.
That's awesome. Well, Kristof, that's a wrap. Thank you so much. Just your history. I think that's just great for people to see what you achieve with talent, what your next steps with Zizou will be. Appreciate everyone for listening. Make sure you follow Kristof and his new adventures as he starts now in the beginning of the year in 2025. Please follow the podcast here for more stories and make sure you follow us at social media at Unboxed Sport. Thank you, Kristof. Thank you, everyone.
My
And see
pleasure.
you next time.
Thank you.